on a Friday. What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. As I say that, I realize, and I feel like I unplugged potentially one of the things that helps the people, or the thing that helps people hear you, which we can't have. We can't have the YouTube stream have a silent, and we can't have the YouTube stream have a silent sound. God forbid we play like a soundbite. That would also not come back. But I think we got it figured out. I could have just calmly plugged in that wire and not said any of that. Nobody would have known the difference. But alas, here we are, an I Can't Help Myself Friday here on the Hoffman Show.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, just making sure.
The people can hear you. In fact, you're probably coming in a little too loud. Probably because you normally come in a little. That's on my end. That's a me thing.
Oh.
Got the home studio set up. And by the way, I'm also trying a wider camera angle today. You know, like McAfee somehow does his show like standing up on a desk and everything looks good on the camera. And I'm like, I don't know. Should I like go a little bit wider? I feel like sometimes my head's just giant in the shot. Just trying to add a little more depth, you know?
I like it so far.
So far, so good?
Yeah.
Feel like a full person over here?
I mean, you're sitting down, but, you know.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to stand up. I could. I have a standing desk.
Yeah.
Although I don't know all these wires are run to use the standing desk currently. So I'll probably just stay seated.
Yeah.
I did have to the other day, just totally audible. This mic just stopped working on me as we were getting ready to interview Charles Davis for Take Command. And so if you watch Take Command on YouTube, you will see a different set behind, like a different looking mic and a different looking background. Although the background's not that different. But it's because I had to move over to the couch, Ant, which you have seen. Sometimes I sit on the couch during the show. Maybe I'll do that for 6 o'clock hour tonight. Who knows? Could get crazy. We're a week towards the draft. We're all losing our minds. And by the way, 1 week from today, we will be discussing who the Commanders took at the number 2 overall pick, presuming that they don't trade out of it, which I think is a safe assumption based off what Adam Peters has said. But I also do feel like I feel less sure about it than I did a couple weeks ago when everything seemed to be pointing towards Jaden Daniels, as now we have found a realm and a depth of silly season that I didn't want to know existed. That somehow, as our graphic says, if you're streaming us on YouTube, the fallout from the Topgolf interview continues into day 2, and it continues to be stupid. I cannot believe some of the commentary about this. It is so silly. One thing that I know this one isn't as silly because we use dating analogies for a lot of different stuff. And people are saying like, oh, this, I got a comment from someone who frequently comments on our show. Brittany do this right now, right? But she goes, if a guy tried to take me on a group date, like after we'd already been dating or whatever, like that wouldn't go over well. And my response is simply this. This isn't a relationship. This is a job interview. And Jaden Daniels doesn't have the job yet. And it's a job where there are group dynamics at play. This isn't a one-on-one monogamous whatever. Like this is business. And it's really high-priced business. And it is a kind of thing that you need to understand how people work in groups. And this kind of interview is used at all different levels of life, from like national security and intelligence jobs to finance to pick any other industry where there are teams that work together. This style of interview happens. And I think, Ant, to be honest, the thing that's like kind of driving me nuts the most is like you got reporters, and I'll even say it, like Schefter, who I have a ton of respect for, who's the most plugged in guy in the league, is out there like speculating on McAfee's show and on other shows, on our guy Jamal Trapper Dive, like he's saying this, and then a couple of days later he's saying that, and on McAfee is like, it seems like this. And I'm like, dude, you're Adam Schefter. Call the agent and find out. Don't speculate. Do the thing that's your job. And now I'm Ron Riveraing it. Do your job. But like, did my mic just die? Oh, no.
Team 980, where the DMV goes to talk Commanders.
Danny Rouillet here from my pals at Ted Britt Ford. When you buy from Ted Britt Ford,
The
you get Ted Britt for
freaking,
life. That means confidence for life, including battery
Comrex
replacement,
died
powertrain
out.
coverage,
I think
complimentary
my
service
power
loaner, free Virginia
thing
State
is,
inspections,
like, needs to be
and so
replaced.
much more. They make it easy. I
Oh man, like on the Comrex.
ride
Yeah.
in under 90
Oh,
minutes.
shoot.
They keep it simple. They value.
All right, sorry about that. I had a power issue, but we're back. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube. We got a little extra fun as me and Anthony were like, and I forgot to toss the commercial break as quickly as Anthony did. But anyway, we're saying that Adam Schefter needs to, instead of positing what emojis mean on Twitter, because I feel like we're all in NFL Draft Month 5 pickle brain, find out. Because now all of a sudden you got Jaden Daniels' agent saying fake news to Schefter on Twitter that he was upset after Schefter went on Get Up this morning and said, yeah, Jaden Daniels and his team were upset. What does seem to potentially be one thing that I would say the Commanders might not have done well if true, which I even hesitate to say because now I'm like, hey, Craig, why don't you make a call and see if you can find this out? I doubt anybody would answer my question on this, but whatever. Like, if they didn't tell Jaden Daniels this was going to be a group situation, that's not ideal. Is it a big deal? No. Because the other thing, too, and this is something that I could honestly probably do a whole other segment, if not a whole entire show on, is this is not free agency. This is a draft. And as much as they might make Daniels mad or upset him or his agent or whatever, they have the choice. They can do whatever they want. Now, if you're going to be an organization and a front office that prides yourself on being, people first and all this stuff that we keep hearing about Adam Peters and Dan Quinn, like treating people the right way and being clear in your communication, like that's your standard. You need to uphold that. I will say that. That's a fair criticism. But I'm not entirely sure that that's all how that all went down. And so to criticize them or anybody really here without knowing all the information seems very silly. What I can safely say is this all feels so incredibly silly. And this is just a part of the evaluation, and it seems to be really close. It seems like they probably don't have their mind made up on exactly who they wanted to take. So they ultimately bring in more people. They try to round out this evaluation, and it is wholly true to who Adam Peters is and how he does business that they take their time, they go through the process, and ultimately land once they have they've done the full flight. They're not trying to land the plane early. They want to run out the entire process and check every box, and then they will get together and be like, okay, now that we all have all of our information, who do you like? Lance Newmark, assistant general manager. Who do you like? Cliff Kingsbury, offensive coordinator. Who do you like? Dan Quinn. Who do you like? Adam Peters. Who do you like? And Adam's the one running that meeting. Hey, Mr. Harris, thanks for joining us. If he's in, do you have any comments that you'd like to add, sir? And then ultimately it's Adam's decision because that's who Josh said has the decision. And by the way, very nicely, Dan Quinn's on board with that. Remember when he was on with the Junkies back at the Combine? I remember listening to that interview on a treadmill at the Homewood Suites in Indianapolis. And Dan was like, Adam's, because they were like, who's the most important opinion in the room? And he's like, Adam. He's the GM. I'm certainly going to give him whatever information he wants from me, and I'm going to give whatever opinion he asks for, but it's Adam Peters' decision. And Adam Peters is going to go through the entire thing, and not only is there nothing wrong with that, it's exactly the way you should do it. And I thought it was really interesting yesterday, the kinds of people that we had calling in. You had people who, just by the way they were conducting themselves, you can tell, super professional, highly placed, boss-type peoples talking about when I was hiring for that job. So the types of people that work in positions where they are hiring other people, calling our show, going, I like this. That tells me a lot. That tells me a lot because the way that you work well, processes type of things, that crosses industries. that crosses high achievement of all kinds. And yet, very silly commentary, very silly criticism continues to roll in because people are bored, because people don't like the Commanders, because people think that Washington's still a train wreck and they expect everything to fail. I don't really know why, but it certainly does. Not from all corners of the media, certainly, though. Charles Davis joined us on Take Command. Yesterday, we recorded that conversation. The full podcast will be out on Monday, but you got to hear what Charles said about all of this, and an incredible story that, if you're not convinced, might just prove his point, our point, the point. You'll hear it from Charles next on the Hoffman Show. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We are always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. 4:30, Clinton Yates joins us for his weekly visit. We're going to pick up kind of where I ended the show yesterday, which is the sports landscape is changing. What do we do about that, and what does it mean for all of us as sports fans as women's sports continue to explode and men continue to step in it as they try to cover them? So we'll get to all of that coming up at 4:30 with Clinton. Right now, though, continuing Top Golf Gate Day 2. Bum, bum, bum. And I feel like we need some kind of we don't have like a dun 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 sound effect. That's like a good one just to have. I don't.
Nah, I have drops.
What you got?
I gotta go find. I have a whole folder, so I gotta go pull them up, and then
All right.
we'll do it later.
Oh well, then the
Too much
joke
pressure on me.
the joke would just have expired. All right. Well, next time we need a dun dun dun, and I'll be ready. That folder's just gonna stay open now.
Yes, sir.
Essig, don't you close that folder. So one thing that you do have ready to play is Charles Davis. Charles joined us on Take Command. And at first, he was like, I think a lot of people were like, what are they doing in Washington? Why are you doing this? And then he thought about it for about 5 seconds, and this is where he landed.
What you were bringing up, Craig, and bringing in these 4 quarterbacks, my immediate thought was, first I was a little bit snarky. I was like, oh, boy, this is kind of fun, right? Steel cage match. Whoever emerges out of here is going to be our draft pick. Ha, 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 ha. But I thought back to combine situations. I thought back to recruiting trips. Okay, I thought back to any group dynamics where you're putting a number of the same type of players or same position players in and seeing how it sits out. How do people respond to them? How do they respond to each other? Who ultimately shows that he is that person or has that thing that you're looking for, depending on what team you're on? So, Logan, whatever you wanted to go, I don't want to take you away from that. I'd love to have you talk about when quarterbacks are coming together, positions are coming together.
And if you want Logan's take on it, you listen to Take Command when that comes out on Monday. I will tell you, actually, we went ahead and published that first segment, that part of the conversation on YouTube at the Team 980. So you can actually check that part of it out now if you'd like on demand. And we'll play a little bit more this incredible story that Charles told in a second that kind of proves the entire point. But to what Charles said when he talks about like combine dynamics, this is something I heard years ago covering the league. People will tell you, watch who is the leader of the group. Like when the wide receivers go out, like watch a guy for this year, like Rome Odunze. Watch how he leads the group. And you go, oh, okay, let me watch. And sure enough, you'd see different players who had different leadership styles and characteristics and whatever abilities show up. And some players were just happy to follow along, and that's not necessarily a deal breaker. Again, this is all a part of the evaluation. But you'd see some guys step up, and you're like, oh, okay. That tells me something. That tells me something about who they are, that in this group, they are comfortable stepping forward. And, you have to actually watch, and this is why a lot of coaches like being, hey, can I be the one to run the drill? Because you see how guys learn, and you get to watch it up close and how they interact, but you get to see also, who's on the side pulling guys aside, offering tips, or who's willing to ask for help. That level of humility goes a long way when you're a young guy in the league trying to learn and figure things out. So like, there's so many different ways in which leadership or positive character presents itself. And in these group settings, it's not just about, hey, we're all getting together and running the drill and who did the best time. Like the stopwatch is certainly a part of the evaluation, but they really do watch, for instance, at the combine, how these guys interact. Or, everyone's at the Starbucks in the morning. Like, how do you treat the barista? Like teams care about that stuff. I think it's probably sometimes too much, because as much as I like a high character guy and care about how people are treated in the world and all that kind of stuff, people have bad days. Like, the stress these guys are under at the combine, like I care about it, but it's not everything. And I think that's where a lot of fans or media types that criticize this stuff get upset, is they think that this is the determining factor. Oh, that guy tipped really well. Hey, he's got his NIL money and he tipped the heck out of that barista. First round pick. No, if he's a 4th round pick on tape, he's a 4th round pick. If he's a 1st round pick who's mean to the barista, he's probably still going to be a 1st round pick. But if you're talking about a franchise quarterback and you're picking between 3 guys in McCarthy, Daniels, and May, who all seem to have the level of tape and talent and measurables and all of the things that they're all worthy of being number 2 overall picks, who you get as a leader and who you get as a person could wind up being the separating factor. There are teams that might like J.J. McCarthy or Jaden Daniels or Drake May as people better, and maybe even the Bears as people better than Caleb Williams. The Bears are taking Caleb Williams because he's the best quarterback in this draft. And, Michael Pratt or Joe Milton or some of these other guys down might be great dudes to hang out with or even really to watch film with. He might be really enjoyable. They're not going to be first-round picks. Why? Because they're not good enough football players. And so it does come down to the mix of it all. But there is also an element of specific to what the Commanders did with this Topgolf thing. And again, I think it's also worth pointing out. We played this bite. Actually, Ant, do you know do you know which bite it was that we played from Peters yesterday? I think it was like bite 4, but it was the second half of it when Stanek asked the question about bringing everyone together. If you can find that real quick, I think you're going to have to cut it because I feel like that we picked that up in the middle. That would be sweet. But it's not even like this was their whole 30 visit. Like, this is sometimes being presented as, they had their 30 visits and they all came in and they went to Topgolf and then they left. And Jaden Daniels was mad. That's not what happened yesterday. This is what happened yesterday.
Yeah, I think, Ben, it's it's people evaluating people. So, I would love to sit here and say we're going to go 9 for 9. I hope we do. I have great confidence that we will.
You wanted me to start it further?
And so,
My bad.
I say that I'm joking, but there's a lot to that. Having 9 picks really gives us that where they say you have more swings or however you want to put it. So we're very fortunate to have that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's all situational. Honestly, there's times where somebody is really jumping out at you as being available, and there's times where you're like, man, there's nothing feels right here, and it might make more sense to go back and take some extra swings later. So I really think for me personally, it's always situational. It's not like a steadfast philosophy.
And a lot's been made over the last 24, 48 hours about bringing in the 4 quarterbacks. I know you in the past at San Francisco, Adam, have brought in different prospects before. Is it different with quarterbacks, or what's your sort of philosophy behind bringing in all these guys together?
Yeah, I don't think it's very different personally with quarterbacks. With all these guys, they all know each other really well. And so what was cool is while we got to see them all together in a group setting at the Topgolf, which was really fun, and I think everybody had a great time, and it was very beneficial to see everybody in a more relaxed environment. They all got a lot of time individually with their coaches, with us, where they were staggered coming in too. So it wasn't like they were sitting in a room together. They all had their own individual time with everybody. So it worked out really well. And then you got a great blend of that, and then working everybody together, in a fun environment.
So there you go. Like, they got individual time. They had individual meetings, which probably felt like a lot of the other individual meetings where they gave a lot of similar answers, which is why you want to get them in a different environment and do this. And Charles Davis told this incredible story on Take Command that I think summarizes why you do things like this, because it's not that you are testing them, it's that they reveal themselves to you.
There's a great story that George Plimpton, I don't know if you guys know that name, he was a great writer, and he wrote a book about trying out for the Detroit Lions.
Yes, yeah.
It was called Paper Lion, back I think it was 1963 or somewhere. Yeah. And they tried to sneak him into camp and have some cover story. And he was a writer who was going through the NFL stuff. And he did a lot of these projects. He pitched, he played goalie, he boxed with Archie Moore. He did all those nutty things, right? But it was great writing. It was great journalism. The book I've read more than 10 times. I've loved it. But in that book, and then in a subsequent book called Mad Ducks and Bears, he detailed going to the Pro Bowl. And he was he was with the Eastern Conference Pro Bowl team. Allie Sherman was the coach of the Giants. He coached the team. They didn't have a meeting. They didn't have a depth chart. You'll love this one, Logan. They went out on the field for the first time.
Oh, yeah. I've heard this.
Yeah.
Yep.
You heard this story, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just said, okay, Craig, you're going to love this. Give me the first team offense over the ball. Now, these are the all-stars. This is the best of the best. They all looked at it. Now, this would have been 1960-something, right? 62, 63, 64, when Allie Sherman was at his heyday. They all looked at each other, took the measure of each other, and 11 guys walked out in the right position.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, think about nowadays. Now you have a steel cage match going. Okay, I get all that. But I'm saying they understood who the best was. That feels a lot like what you're trying to do when you're bringing these groups together.
Sometimes you just know. And if they walked away yesterday after that Top Golf session and after all those meetings, and everyone just kind of looks around and goes, yeah, that's the guy, that probably tells you something. And as long as that guy is someone you're comfortable with on tape and is right there, like was already at the top of your list and you're just looking for separators, okay. If it doesn't, then you got to decide what's more important to you. And you're probably going to go with the tape. So it's not an overrider. It's not a, hey, how they are as players and what they do on the field doesn't matter. It's these guys are all really close. There's positives and pros and cons, and this guy's the best at this, but he's the worst at that, and the guy who's the worst at this or at that is the best at this. Like there's a lot of closeness in the evaluation here, depending on what you favor. And ultimately, Logan has been saying this for weeks. The person that you like the most, the person that you're the most invested in as a human, is the person you're going to coach the hardest. Dan Quinn had a great line that they showed us in the latest Commanders log, which is out now on the Commanders YouTube page, about how your ability to coach is limited by your depth of relationship with the person you're coaching. And so the better you get along with this person that you're going to draft, the better chance you have of having a successful long-term relationship with them, player to coach and organization to player, because you are going to do everything you can to make sure they succeed in a way, and they'll be open to that in a way that if you don't have that relationship, isn't possible. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And when we get back, we're talking with ESPN's Clinton Yates, of course, great friend of the show. And then we're talking more draft coming up at the top of the hour. And 3, 2, and 1. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. And on a Friday, we always welcome in my friend Clinton Yates, of course, host of ESPN Daily, which, Clinton, you can listen to daily. Yes, daily. On your favorite podcast app. Of course, you can also watch him on Around the Horn and read his work on Anscape at ESPN.com. So, sir, we want to talk about a story that we touched on briefly at the end of the show yesterday. But the Mystics have moved their game coming up in June against the Indiana Fever, which, of course, just selected Caitlin Clark, number 1 overall in the WNBA draft, to Capital One Arena. Yet another signal of this ever-changing sports landscape, certainly of which women's sport, women's basketball, has become a much larger part, and especially over the last year, kind of since that LSU-Iowa game. But this has been a steady rise for a while that has just had, some kind of accelerant poured on the fire of that news and kind of all these other stories that are, for better or for worse, popping up as a result.
Well, I think it's good news, number one. And number two, I think it's highly necessary. And third, I think that we're moving towards what I would plainly just call that interaction between that Indy Star reporter and columnist, and Caitlin Clark in their introductory press conference. That was the kind of thing that happened in the old world, in which this crusty, frankly, old white man kind of contingent of people who held the reins of what were considered to be important in just isn't an important person in the room anymore. And so the reason that's important is because that interaction was so far off base. It was clear that a lot of men in the sports industry are simply not ready to not be the center of the conversation, even when the women who are athletes are superstars. And that, to me, is something that we really got to make sure that we understand. The populace of sports fans, like, hey, guess what, dudes? No, if you don't like the basketball, there are plenty people who do. And the idea of trying to grow those games for the sake of, again, who we are as a sports populace and who we are as people, I think is one of the most exciting things to come that I've seen in a long time as a sports fan, never mind a journalist.
Yeah. On this, and we could bring in sociology professors, because in some about like shifting population dynamics and marketing, and like there are so many angles to this story, but it's marketed to one particular kind. And like this is the thing, by the way, that it's not just white dudes in sports. Certain products that are targeted at all kinds of demographics. I mean, shoot, sports radio, like we look at ratings in certain target demos, and that determines how our bosses are doing. Like this is nothing new. It's just who the target demo is for. And a part of that is because what we consider sports, and especially maybe better put, what we consider mainstream sports, has changed. And again, certain going for a while, but the way that Clark, with obviously supporting help from Angel Reese and so many others, but Clark has just been such a phenomenon where, like, yes, other games are selling out on schedules, but the Aces, the Mystics, and others are moved to bigger arenas when she's in town. That it has just changed the status quo, what feels like overnight in some ways, and that's going to have consequences.
It is, and I think that the only reason that we really call Clark the phenomenon is because of the numbers, but the phenomenon truly is the game. Look, they were selling out games all over the place in the Final Four and have been all season in, like, let's just say the SEC or what have you. And for me, it's about a rising tide lifting all boats kind of situation. And I want to live in a world in which women's sports are taken as seriously and is promoted as highly as all the understand. These guys that get out there and they're talking about this and talking about that. What is the exact purpose of being a hater on women's sports? Like, can somebody explain that to me? Because it is such a bizarre indication of insecurity from guys that claim to be big-time sports fans that they can't handle the notion that somebody who is a basketball player is more famous than their favorite men's whatever player. It's just such a strange, you talk about sociology kind of mindset that I will never understand it. But I think here's another thing, too. It's that and you've worked around these parts, so you understand this. A women's professional team sports league moving higher up the ranks of our general the world we've never really lived in like that. The U.S. women's national team is not the same. That's a tournament team. It's not quite the same thing with college basketball because, again, those are linked to institutions. The WNBA itself is in one of the more unique positions it's been in a long time to simply remind people, yeah, not only are these athletes really good players, awesome and even cooler people to root for as stars, basketball aside. And that, to me, is just such a fantastic opportunity that I have no concept of why people would want to look down upon that.
Clint Yates with us, of course, commentator for ESPN. And you just hit on a couple of things that I closed the show with. And first, just to kind of clarify something, that's why I use the term accelerant for Clark, is these trends have been going this way. She just pushed it to a new level, but this has been coming. As you said, there have been sellouts all over the place. I mean, the Aces sold out a bunch of stuff last year. I mean, they sold out their season tickets for this year pretty instantaneously, but as someone who's been to Aces games in Las Vegas, it's one thing to sell out the 8,000 seat arena or whatever Michelob Ultra is versus the 20,000 seat that they sold out just as instantly when the Fever are in town. So it's, again, it's an accelerant here. But to your point, my thing has always been on women's sports as someone who has been covering them since college. I mean, I called women's games and we would talk about them. And part of that was, frankly, like I kind of stumbled into that because the culture at Middle Tennessee State, where I started school before transferring to Syracuse, was the women's basketball team was more worth talking about because they had more eyes on them. And turns out the star on that team was someone named Alicia Clark, which is why, and the Aces, because she's now won a bunch of rings and is one of our best friends. But that's kind of just how it was. And then, but my argument has always been exactly what you said. If you want more good sports, then support the sports. Like ultimately, especially with you is right now, which I do wonder as this league continues to grow, if it's going to have to change. It's a summer season. Like, I mean, you're as big of a baseball fan as anyone, but for me, who's not as big of a baseball guy, like summer's pretty bleak. Like, there's only so many training camp segment countdowns we can do. There's only so much waiting for football I want to do. I would like to talk about real sports, and there are real sports happening in the summer. And the WNBA and the NWSL currently are two of the biggest leagues, along with Major League Baseball, that will go during the summer. And if enough people care that I, on my mainstream sports talk radio show, can talk about them, that is good. That is great. Give me more sports. And I don't understand why anyone would be anti more good sports.
It's mind-boggling, and it's just, I don't know. Sometimes it's kind of disheartening, but I'm not the kind of person that wallows in potential failures of things. I just look at this and I say, man, can you imagine being a little girl right now, or even just a young sports fan in general, with so many burgeoning options of not just sports you can watch, but people you can like and root for? There seems to be this notion that a lot of people hit me up on Twitter with this kind of nonsense, which is those people aren't really there for basketball. Experience, and they like what they are looking at. You're trying to tell me that every single person that goes to a ballpark knows who is in the bullpen or what the starting pitcher's ERA is? Unlikely, dog. You know what I'm saying? And so all of these weird goalpost shifting things that we talk about when we talk about why various women's sports won't succeed are just mind-boggling. Like, people like it. There's nothing wrong with that, and it doesn't matter why. And it's getting to this point now where when I meet people who have any sort of a chortle or snort, when I bring up women's sports of any kind, you're getting axed out of my life most likely, because what time period are you living in, dog? It's just such a strange thing. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I want to implore all of the people out there who cover these sports, who like these sports, and who spend and invest in these sports to keep it going. All right? We are trying to grow something here. We're not trying to sit back and compare ourselves to what other things were like. That will never make sense, and it is not a recipe for success, Gregory.
Right. It's not a scarcity mindset. Here's the other thing I'll say, though, kind of on that front. Like the NWSL and the WNBA are not charity projects. These athletes are not charity projects. And I think that is where, like, a Greg Doyle gets himself in incredibly, like, deep water. Also came out afterwards and was like, I also have a creepy Greg Doyle story. And I was like, oh, so when you did some actual important reporting and used to be a real journalist, you were also a terrible person, huh? Great. Glad that came to light. Not good. But like this, the way to support is to treat sports like sports. Like, the way to do this is not to beg and plead and make it sound like it's charity. It's not. It's just buy jerseys, go to the games. WNBA League Pass, great deals in sports right now. Like, it's $40 and you get every game. Like, that's stealing. Go buy WNBA League Pass because you get to watch really good hoop all summer. And it's what you do if you're a basketball fan and you want something to watch at night. Like, it's not go buy it so that you can make a political statement or anything like that. Go buy it so you can enjoy the hoop. And I think that's where we're too cutesy with it. They overthink it. And as I said yesterday to close out the show, I both love and hate when I have a guest on to talk about, like, a couple years ago when the Mystics were in the playoffs. And they text me after the hit and they're like, wow, you asked real basketball questions. I was like, yeah, what do you think I was going to do? Because they're so used to going on shows and being asked about whether or not the sport should exist. And I feel like the biggest cultural shift as we had is it's pretty clear now the argument has been won. The sport not only should, but not should only exist, but should thrive. And now we can start treating them like real sports, which means having really dumb, stupid debates like we do about everything else.
I'll end this with one story. Years ago, when I was a camp counselor and a sports teacher at the camp, a kid wore a Shamiqua Holdsclaw jersey to camp one day. He was a boy. A lot of the other boys made fun of them. I put every single one of those kids in detention, and their parents could not understand what was going on. I said, we're going to have a meeting after school today, or at the end of the week or whatever. And when I explained to them that we will not be making fun of little boys for wearing girls' athletes' jerseys, they deserved it. That's all.
Yeah. Now I'm going to go pick out which jersey I want to wear for the rest of the show. Clinton Yates with us here on the Hoffman Show each and every Friday. What's up on Daily today? People actually, let me ask you this. We should do this every Friday. What was your favorite episode of Daily from the week that if someone wants to listen to as they're popping around on their errands this weekend, they should put in their ears?
Probably today's. I talked with Wendy about the NBA playoffs, but mainly we got into a big-time discussion about what's happening with gambling in the NBA. Very slippery slope as far as a lot of things are going on, and I feel at the top of mind for a lot of different sports leagues, not just the association.
That is 100% correct. We talked about that on the show yesterday, too. Clinton Yates, check him out, ESPN Daily. We'll talk to you next Friday here on the radio, sir, and I'll probably talk to you before then because that's tend to be how life goes.
Goodbye, Gregory.
Goodbye. All right, that is Clinton Yates with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back here on the Team 980, Ant and I look ahead a little bit to what else is going on this weekend. We'll wrap up the hour. And then coming up at 5 o'clock, Mike Golick Jr., Logan Paulson and I play a game. Would you trade up for insert lineman here for the Commanders in the first round? Definitely got to hear those answers next on the Hoffman Show. Voice time as well on the free Odyssey app with the ever-dancing Anthony Haney producing the show. I am merely a sitting still Craig Hoffman. What was that?
Craig.
You were...
This is my song
Whoa,
right here,
whoa,
man.
whoa.
Were you in college when this came out?
I was. Why did you say that with in that tone of voice? Oh, okay. Was that what that was? That was curiosity?
Yeah, I was just curious.
Okay. Yeah, no, I definitely was in college when that song came out. I was at Cuse by that point. I was I think a junior. This is like my party trick. I know when songs came out because that's when I was doing music radio too. That's TikTok by Kesha. Maybe that came out when I was still at MT. I know we played that on Z89 back in the day. No, 2010.
It came out in 2010.
2010. Yeah. August, officially released August 7th, 2009. But I think it kind of popped off in 2010.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, we definitely, when I was back the general manager of Z89 back in the day, we definitely programmed some Kesha.
Okay. All right.
Top 40 music back in the day.
I'm going to try to get some more.
A lot of Kesha.
Try to get some more 2010 adjacent music.
You're talking Kesha, you're talking early Drake, you're talking early Nicki, you're talking, oh, God, LMFAO had like their 5 seconds of fame.
Party Rock?
Yeah, like Party Rock Anthem was like the biggest song probably while I was in school.
Good
Chart-wise. Well, you were what, high school? Yeah, there's a lot of Pitbull.
My first year of high school, 2010.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't make you feel old.
A little bit, but I know our audience, and there's a lot of people that are older than me. So really, you're just killing the audience right now, Ant, which is definitely your job as a producer. Our weekend preview is brought to you by
nobody.
Yeah, still nobody. We have a couple of things going on this weekend. Of course, the Nationals are back home. They are hosting the Houston Astros. Bang on your trash cans, everybody. Head out to Nats Park and boo your faces off. But it's okay because we got the ring. 2019, may it live forever. 6:45 first pitch is tonight. Actually, I'm curious for selfish reasons what the rest of the schedule is this weekend, because it could be a busy Saturday in Navy Yard. Schedule, the Nationals will play thank God. Be a little messy getting out. Nationals play the Astros 6:45 tonight, 4:05 tomorrow, 1:35 on Sunday, which is relevant because at Audi Field tomorrow, we have Spirit and Gotham, the defending champs, coming to town. And we talked about, we actually didn't talk much about that game itself, but got a chance earlier in the week to catch up with Spirit rookie Croy Bethune. I owe you that audio, don't I? So you can put it in the podcast feed.
Yes, sir.
So I will get that to you. Remind me in the commercial break, and I will send that to you. But Croy Bethune, great interview with the Spirit rookie who's got a couple of goals already in her first handful of games. She's crushing it, as is her fellow rookie, Hal Hirschfeld. Really great interview with Croy. But that game tomorrow, if you don't have tickets, I think there are a few left to come out to Audi. It's such a great time. Weather should be beautiful, the whole deal. But we also, that game's on Big CBS. So it's on Channel 9, WSA 9 tomorrow, so you can check that one out there. Of course, Capitals get started this weekend in the playoffs. 3 o'clock is the puck drop on Sunday. That's an ESPN game. I do think Joe B and them get to call the first round, if I'm not mistaken, on Monumental. But definitely the national broadcast will be on ESPN. And then all of a sudden, Ant, it's draft week. We got our
draft week is upon us, baby.
We got we just got our marching orders today. We got remotes all over the place. Like JP and Doc are out somewhere. Me and B Mitch will be in Detroit. Grant and Danny will be out and about as well. And of course, every single pick of the 2024 NFL draft for the Commanders, you will hear right here on the Team 980. Our coverage simulcast on 106.7 The Fan for the first round with Grant and Danny on Thursday night. I will be checking in from Detroit for sure. But those guys have it covered in terms of anchoring it, starting at 7 o'clock right after my show. And then Friday night, pulling Sheehan in on a weeknight / weekend night. What's a Friday? Do you consider Friday a weekend night?
It's the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a weekend,
it's the
weekend night. Yeah. Sheehan and Denton have it, have you covered. In the first part of the night, Linnell's on late night both nights, so full reaction, live and local all the way through and beyond the first round, beyond the second and third rounds on day 2. And then Pete Medhurst and Denton have you on Saturday for day 3 here on the Team 980. So if you're out and about driving around, obviously a lot of you will be watching the draft on TV, but you got to go run an errand. You got to do whatever you got to do. If you got stuff to do in your house, you got chores to do, and you can't just plop in front of the TV, fine. The free Odyssey app. If you got an Alexa, hey, Alexa, play the Team 980 on the free Odyssey app. You do that. Boom. Your Alexa's playing the Team 980. Take out your phone. Pop in some earbuds. Whatever you got to do, we got you covered. No excuses. Every pick. Ignore your No, don't ignore your family. Don't do that. Don't do that. They'll send you alerts. I'm sure the Odyssey app will send you alerts. I'm sure we'll be sending out push notifications, as the kids call them, and the professionals. All right, when we get back, speaking of professionals, Mike Golick Jr. didn't quite make it as a professional offensive lineman. He did spend some time in some NFL camps, but boy, does he know his football. Gojo, Logan, me, play a game. Would you take insert 2024 NFL draft lineman prospect here in the first round if you got to trade up to get him? We play that game next on the Team 980. Hour number 2 on the Hoffman Show. Team 980 always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up at 5:30, preview of every single series in the NBA playoffs. That'd be really cool. And if we could preview the entire rounds of the NBA playoffs, we just knew who was going to win. I think we should run down the street to your local sports book and do more with that than say that knowledge on the radio.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, we can't. We're just going to give our best guess of the first round series, some analysis. We'll go 2 minutes-ish, like a final 2 minutes, except for we won't make it a full NBA 2 minutes because then we'd only get through one series. It would last 15. But we'll do 2 minutes or so on each series of the NBA playoffs coming up at 5:30. Right now, though, it is time for Not My Beat. And we can skip the formal Not My Beat introduction because today's Not My Beat is a clip from Take Command, where I sports radioed up the highfalutin podcast that is, as Mike Golick Jr. joined us to talk about the offensive linemen that are going to be on the board for Washington to consider trading back into the first round. This was a great podcast where we talked almost exclusively O-line. You will hear who Mike would take with the number 2 pick coming up at the end of this segment. And we had a great reaction segment off of it that I highly recommend where Logan gave some extra thoughts. And if you missed part 1, well, that's why you just listen to the whole podcast. But for right now, would you take that lineman in the first round? Would you trade up in the first round for that lineman? Me, Gojo, Logan, let's get it here on this Friday. What about for circled for a long time is Darius Robinson is kind of a great fit for what Dan Quinn wants, the toughness, the nasty streak, all that, what we saw at the Senior Bowl. Obviously, a lot of folks have drawn the line between what Micah Parsons was in college, wearing the same jersey at Penn State as Chop Robinson, because they're both physical freaks that went to Penn State. Obviously, there's a lot of differences between the two, but are either of those, maybe if you're Washington, you would consider back end of the good last, and kind of where's your drop off on the edge, guys?
I think
got the wrong link that I sent to Anthony on that one. So, Ant, I'm going to send you right now a different link, and that's going to be the one that we're going to play, and it's going to be the right one. What's really funny talk about like we're just in pickle brain draft mode where we can't get anything right here. Is I sent you a wrong link in the break that you caught and were like, hey, I don't think this is the right one. And then I still screwed it up. So that's 100% on me. Big goofball over here. Someone whose brain is clearly not working at optimal capacity. But you want to know what we're going to do? We're just gonna roll on because Anthony saved our bacon and now he's ready to go. And here's the thing that I told you we were gonna do, not the thing that I accidentally sent him. All right, so I'm gonna sports talk radio this up and we're gonna play it because I want. We're talking O-line. Mike's a sports talk radio veteran. Logan, you're clearly going to be the most uncomfortable with this, but it's also just a mock trade. So the question is, would you make the trade? And I'm going to make it, let's say 36 and 67. I'll go the richest version of this. Like if you're doing 36 and 40, you better be trading into the mid-teens. So we're going to say the players I'm going to name are available. I'll say 23. Minnesota, presuming that they still hold that pick by then and they haven't made another trade to get into the top 5 for a quarterback. But you got to get in front of Dallas at 24. And so you're going to package 36 and 67, which Washington has. You're going to go down from 6 top 100 picks to 5 top 100 picks to do this. Would you do it for the following players? The first one, since there seems to be the biggest disagreement here, is Tyler Guyton. Would you make that trade? Mike, I'll let you go first.
I would probably not.
Yeah, so for me, I think the thing with Tyler Guyton is if you want him, I think you have to get to 23 because I think one of those next 4 or 5 teams will probably take him. And again, like Mike alluded to, like he's very raw. He's very inconsistent. But the athlete, the frame, all those things, like there's a reason, like, there's only a couple guys on the planet Earth that look like this. I would definitely consider it. I would have to have a talk with my offensive line coach about whether he thought he could get him there, quite honestly, like, to Mike's point. But like, in terms of the athlete, in terms of the length, in terms of the mentality, watch him at the Senior Bowl, it's something I would definitely consider, but it's not an emphatic yes from me. Like, if we were talking, hey, man,
Interesting.
27 to 35, like, or 27 to 32, like, I'd be like, hell yeah, let's get that done, because I think he's going to be that much athletically better than the guys we just talked about. But that is a little bit of rich for a guy that I think is on the fence in terms of whether he's going to actually hit in terms of offensive line play or not.
Okay, interesting. Logan, I thought that was going to be 100% yes for you, but that's a definitive maybe, which is honestly right up your alley.
That's how I do stuff. Just maybes, man. We're just playing the fence the whole time.
Just maybes. This one I feel like is going to be more definitive. Amarius Mims.
Mike, you want to go? I think I know your answer, probably.
I would, yeah. I just think you don't get 340 pounds that looks and moves like that very often. And again,
maybes. Playing the fence the whole time.
Just maybes. This one I feel like is going to be more definitive. Amarius Mims.
Mike, you want to go? I think I know your answer, probably.
I would, yeah. I just think you done 40 like a math problem. I think you just have to get him more reps because a lot of the rest of it was there. The Georgia offensive line, the way it changed when he was out of that game and they had to kick Xavier Truss out to right tackle and kind of mix up the bag, it was noticeable that just on a football, but again, like, bends really well for a guy that size, moves really well for a guy that size. He's just got to get more consistent with a lot of things, but I would trust him if I'm going to take one of the guys a little bit more on the traitsy side and say, yeah, that dude's a little bit closer, and I think I can get him there.
Yeah, I mean, that's 100% yes for me. And I think just because I think when it's all said and done, he might be the best guy in the class. And I think when you look at the Ohio State game, when you look at the Alabama game, like, it looks like I've said this before, it looks like you're watching a high school football game and there's that one kid who's going D1, right? He's just better than everybody. And it's like he's kind of sleepwalking. Like, his technique's not always perfect, but he's just bigger, stronger, faster. Like, seeing him at the second level, this is very unique. It's kind of like watching DeJuan Jones last year a little bit from Ohio State. You're just so big and you're just so skilled and athletic and you understand the angle so well, like, you're going to be fine. So I think the one thing that gets me a little bit nervous is you hear things like he's probably sure and develop as an NFL player, but in terms of what you see on film, even though it's only 7 games, like, I'm not kidding. Like, there is a universe and it's a very plausible offense. I think they're going to play the lottery. Like, might as well play with that guy. So,
yeah, the character stuff's interesting with him because you hear that, but you also see, like, Dane Brugler has in The Beast, like, some really, really high compliments from some of his teammates. So the teammates speak really highly of him. Sometimes you wonder, like, how coming out of Georgia, how trained up, media trained does Kirby Smart have him? But ultimately, the center, I think, from Georgia had some really nice things to say about Mims. All right, so 2 guys I'm going to put out there kind of together for the same reason. It feels like Talisi Fuaga, there's no way he falls that far. But Barton, I'm going to put him as well for the reason that a lot of people, like, don't know if they're actually tackles. Fuaga, there's a lot of people that say that dude's a guard. Now, it feels like he's a top 15 pick as a guard anyway, so probably not a thing. But if you're Washington and you need a tackle, specifically you need a left tackle, if somehow in them to play tackle.
Mike, you want to go?
Sure. I would say for Talisi, super interested in him playing tackle. He'd be on the right side there, but just a road grader. And you want to talk about, like, incredibly technically sound, looks the way it's supposed to. Sometimes the change of direction leaves a little bit to be desired. That might be my one concern with edge athletes. And it's why I think if you got him at guard, man, you got a home run. But if you got him at tackle, I think you still have a really solid starting player there that you can plug in pretty close to day one. How he would handle the flip, like we talked about, is everybody else's thing. Barton, I really think he's got to be an interior guy. I thought he held up really well against some of the quality around the ACC. I think his lower body bend, his core strength, all this stuff Really think if you were going to want him in as a day one starter, inside is probably where you want him to end up. Prefer him. Center would be awesome, but I think he could absolutely play guard with what you've seen him do, like largely out of a 2-point stance. You generate the kind of power you see that dude kind of consistently do coming out of a 2-point stance all the time, the way he often had to do it, Duke.
Yeah. I mean, like with Barton, I know like Washington doesn't need an interior player necessarily, but he just feels like the most get on base type of prospect out of this like first round group. Like you are going to get a good player, whether it's at guard, I mean, maybe right tackle in a pinch, guard, center, either guard spot. Like I love his film, and if Washington needed a guard, I'd say yeah, trade up and get him because he's the best guard in the class by a mile. Talisi Fuaga, I'm doing backflips. I don't think he's going to be there necessarily, and I do worry about the switch with him from right to left. But in terms of just a good physical culture-setting football player, like I think that's what you're looking at there. And then we'll figure out left tackle in free agency after the draft is over. But if he's there and that's the option to trade up for him and go get him, like he is maybe my most favorite player in the draft just because he attacks the game with such violence, like some stuff just for being overly aggressive. And I want that guy in the building to kind of set the tone and set the roadmap for this organization. So yeah, I'd trade up for him in a second. Graham Barton also, if that was a need for the Washington Commanders. So
yeah, for what it's worth, those are like we all go through and we talk about draft prospects and you try and study as many of them as you can. There have not been two guys whose tape I have enjoyed watching more than Talisi and more than Graham. Like those were like genuinely fun to sit and watch the way that these guys approach the game for all the reasons Logan mentioned.
So that's an easy one, Craig. You just might not get, like, I mean, it just doesn't fit a need necessarily, but they're good football players.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Fuaga is the kind of guy where, like, if he's falling into the 20s because everyone's like, oh, he's a guard, not a tackle, and not the value, you just go, well, screw you guys. Like, if he becomes our left guard, like, they kind of, I mean, I know they signed Nick Allegretti, but all due respect to Nick Allegretti, if you can get that guy, might mess around with that. I'm guessing Fashanu, you guys would both trade up for as well.
Yeah, I do. I would. I Olu's draft journey from last year to this year has been fascinating because there were a lot of people that thought if he had left last year, he'd have been the first tackle off the board. He probably would have been a top 5 pick. And now we've seen, the Joe Alt conversation I knew was coming this year, but I didn't see him getting lapped. Like J.C. Latham being up above him was surprising to me because this is a dude. Scenario the rest of the league is if Olu makes it down to like where does Philly pick 17
like 21 I
21
think.
22 sorry
22 yeah.
If he gets down to 22 and Philadelphia gets a hold of that guy, it is over, done, because that is expensive line class. Like you watch the thing his lower half is capable of doing. It gets him out of so much trouble when his hand strike can get a little bit inconsistent at times. But I think he is so sudden, so twitchy. Had a couple of rough games against Ohio State that kind of scared people off, or like a game like against Ohio here. But again, I think if you just get everything tightened up a little bit there, like there's a guy whose profile has a really, really high ceiling to it.
I haven't like a nerd. It's gonna kill the game.
That's what this podcast is. It's, hey, Craig, get out of the way so Logan can do the super nerd thing.
Just ask so okay. So I like him a lot as a prospect. I agree. He's very twitched up athletically, but I think when you watch him, there is I don't say it's an external rotation of the hips, like a he's a waist bending kind of athlete, which makes me concerned long term about his ability and his long-term productive in the run game. You mentioned Graham Barton, just how bendy he is in his lower half, how he can uncoil his hips. I don't see that same type of strike from the hip standpoint from Fashanu. Now, if you think that's a technical correction, I'm 100% on board. If you think that's just kind of how he's built, like I think his ceiling is much lower than people want to give him because again, that ankle tightness, that kind of hip tightness, he's like a long-limbed lower half kind of guy, right? So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because I like him. But I see some of that movement stuff in terms of ability to power into blocks. Because again, his movement stuff is great. His lateral quickness is awesome. His ability to get to the second level is great. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out to you and say, hey, Logan, that's dumb. Or, hey, I see it too, kind of thing. So
No, I think like we're all going to fine tooth comb a lot of these guys,
Yeah.
especially on the high end when it's a multi-million-dollar investment. And that's the kind of stuff, a guy like Duke Manyweather who does a great job training up all these dudes, so good at a bunch of those things and seeing that. That being said, for me, the concerns are a little bit more minimal there. Like I think the thing he always does to me in the scene just gets square on guys and gets his knees into dude. Like everyone always has that like hip roll thing as their sort of like totem in the run game of, oh, you got to roll your hips through. I was always taught more of like a get your knees into guys, and he just gets on to guys, gets latched on, and just finds a way to move. Like best days, I think there, maybe some of it could be scheme specific and what you're asking him to do, but I think just between that and like the basketball player feat that you get in pass pro, like so much of offensive line play is just how can you recover when things go wrong. It's what I think is Zach offensive lineman is. Even when things go wrong, there's a part of Zach that's going to make it right. He's the ultimate recovery offensive lineman, and I think Olu's lower body has a little bit of that to it, where even when his upper gets out of control a little bit or gets him in trouble, he's so fluid as a mover below the body that I think it offsets some of those other things, just because, again, he can get himself out of a jam sometimes, and that to me is really, really, I won't say undervalued, but it's very important.
No, I agree. I think the feet are excellent. He's probably got the best feet in the class, quite honest. Him or I think Troy Fontenot, right, from UW, probably both in like that really amazing feet type of area.
Yeah, Troy, like as far as like pushing to the spot, Troy is great. My worries for him come against longer, stronger athletes where sometimes it doesn't look like the lower body strength is always there as much.
Right.
For edge guys, like you watch those, the freak shows they trot out at Oregon, although how long and is there. Every once in a while you'd see Troy ending up on the ground, and I think in large part was because kind of had to compensate once he got to the spot and maybe didn't that was in the scouting report. Every once in a while I can look up and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that looks like a little bit every once in a while. So obviously not to that extent. We're grading on a curve here relative to a guy that talented, but it's why I do think more of him as much as possible, because Troy Fautano at center, it kicks so much ass. I talked with Nate Tice about this over at The Athletic, and he kind of offered it up too, just because even when you look at him, his stance, he's squared off like an interior guy, but he is so fluid on the edge. I can understand why, especially post-combine, people fell in love with that dude, seeing the way that he moved around in shorts.
I feel like every single guest we have right now is so incestuous. Like we've had Nate, we've had Mina. Mina's talking about Nate. You're talking about Nate. Then you'll have Mina. Hey, you guys want to talk about the Commanders? Which does leave one question left, Mike. Hard left turn, or perhaps more accurately, like 1 to 4 yards back, depending on whether or not we're in shotgun. If you're the Commanders at 2, who would you take on the quarterback side of it?
I would take Drake. I've been steadfast on this. Like I almost think of my pre-draft takes as like a time capsule and put them in there and then come to the end after we've done everything else, barring like major character concerns or an injury thing you find at the combine, and go, all right, what did I think about this guy as a football player when we got started with all this? And is there any reason why that would have changed? And my initial read of this class was there was a top tier of 2 guys. It was Caleb Williams and Drake May, who I said could have been more 1A and 1B, because I think their games have a lot of real similarities to them, even if Drake is the superior physical prospect really amongst this whole draft in terms of size and measurable. I would take him there. I understand the arguments for Jaden Daniels and appreciate them, but just for me, Drake would be the guy I was most comfortable with.
You really have talked to Nate a lot, haven't you?
I mean, Nate, I remember it was so funny watching this in college football season, because I'm sure you guys noticed this too. Like I'm getting ready to call games in college, so I'm watching, what does this player do that makes it really hard for the other team to beat him? What does he do well for that? Not as much thinking like, oh, what's he going to do on Sunday? How's that Rosetta Stone that goes on after the season, where you got to retrain your brain to think, all right, what does this guy project like to the NFL? And I figured, like I said to someone before the season, the Drake and Caleb conversation is going to come. It's probably sometime after the year. And then once USC lost to Notre Dame, it was all of a sudden like everyone just goes, all right, well, now USC's out of it. Let's start nitpicking Caleb Williams like we're getting ready for the draft in the middle of October and November. November. And then that was when it all of a sudden started. And yeah, Nate planted his flag early on and said, I am Drake May #1 overall guy. He has been steadfast on that. And I agree with a lot of what he sees there. I just think that's a guy. I think footwork and processing are the things that I see most people bring up there, but I don't know. I just did not see it enough nearly to say I would knock him below Jaden Daniels, who, you've got some concerns about the frame there. Certainly, is he going to be more of a one read and go kind of guy versus what you'll get out of the other two prospects there? But I just think that kind of size, what we've already seen from the arm and him do without a ton of help there in North Carolina, makes me pretty optimistic.
I mean, I think it's funny because we all see the same stuff. It's just what do you value? And that's where I think I don't know where I am. It depends on the day.
I was going to say, have you guys made like the strong argument for Jaden Daniels here? What's like the general consensus on Washington? Like, who do people want?
That's the $1 million question, depending on who you talk to, right? It's like, it's kind of like a microcosm of the national media, right? You got guys that are, and I kind of personally feel like they're all kind of in the same tier. And to me, it's more about kind of the ecosystem that Dan Quinn and this staff kind of develop here, and if they like a guy, like, as like you've been around coaches before, if I like a guy, I'm more invested in you. I'm going to do more to make sure that you work and you're successful. So, like to me, if they took JJ McCarthy, I'd be like, great. Now what are we going to do to make sure that this guy gets to where we think he can go? So that's kind of my perspective. But again, that's like total fence sitting and goes back to that maybe thing Craig was mentioned earlier. But yeah, I think depending on who you talk to in the fan base in the DC area, like you're going to get a very emphatic response one way or the other.
I heard I think one of the best points I have heard in the feather for Jaden Daniels and his argument was Eric Galco, who's one of the directors of the East West Shrine Bowl. He was on with Richard Duo the other day, which is an awesome podcast and a really fun conversation between the two of them. But he talked about the aptitude that Jaden has already displayed in college, about how much better he's gotten at every stop along the way. He was a guy that flashed early that we all saw at ASU. And when he said, you talk to people around LSU and what he was able to do coming over there year 1 to year 2 with Brian Kelly and that staff, like he's a guy that takes, what you give him and the criticism and all the coaching points and actually puts them out there and improves on those things. And so I think, you talk about the intangibles and the stuff that coaches like, being that receptive to coaching, where it's not only, you're going to take it, not have a bad attitude about it, but you're actually going to be able to apply that to your game, is hugely valuable for anyone at any position, but especially your quarterback. So I thought that was a really interesting and well thought out argument for Jaden Daniels and what he's already shown you as a collegiate player.
Yeah, I think that's why I think I've found myself slightly leaning back towards Daniels. Is you go, okay, the jump is the big question. Why did that happen? Are you just 23 and dominating college football now because you're an older guy you've seen 4 years worth of it? And you go, no, he discovered VR and he put in the work and he took the time. You're like, oh, you have aptitude. Okay, cool. Like we can work with that. So I think that's where I'm at, but ask me again tomorrow and I might have a different answer. Mike Golick Jr., Gojo and Golick, you can catch it on the Draft Kings Network. Mike, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir, for your time. And we'll have to do more. Logan can ask you about internal hip rotation next time. We'll do that in
I was going to say, man, we're getting into like biomechanics
in the
here
weeds.
And hip fluidity. It's a beautiful thing. This is sicko
weeds.
stuff. I love it.
Yeah, you and Kevin Clark go debate beers. We're going to do biomechanics over here.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well in the free Odyssey app. And you said, I got a banger for you.
That's not a banger?
It's not what I'm about to criticize you, question you about. Then you go, R&B.
This is more so pop. My bad.
It's not more so pop.
It is pop.
It's pop. In no way has Flo Rida ever done R&B. What the heck? What?
And you want to know what's crazy, Craig?
Besides what just happened? Sure. Go ahead. Extend to the crazy.
In the Google search, I typed 2010 pop songs. I don't know why I told you R&B, but the whole time I was thinking it was pop.
Yeah.
Because it is pop.
You were like, male artist, first name F. And I'm like, Frank Ocean? Who else was hot back then? And then, here comes Flo Rida. What?
My bad.
Yeah. Honestly, not bad, though, because that was funny.
It was. Oh,
That was.
man.
I'm crying a little bit, like actual tears. Oh man, that was. Woo. What a banger to start the second half of the show.
Yes.
In every sense of the word. All right. This is the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, and we have made an executive decision that will excite the people. Coming up at 6 p.m. mock draft. Pew, 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 pew. Do you have sound effects? That you told me you had sound effects. That sound effect was the one we needed an hour and a half ago.
I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready.
Needed the oh boy.
See, I don't have my sound effects on a board or anything.
Why
They're
not?
They're in a folder.
I think you should get them on a board.
All right. We don't really use them that much. That's why
You could.
I left.
I
them
love
in.
sound effects.
All right, man. Say less. I got a lot.
Okay. All right, throw them up on the board.
All right.
Now we can have dual. You know, like those dueling piano bars.
Yep.
We can be dueling sound effect radio wackadoodles.
All right, that's a bet.
All right. What we're going to do now, though, is give dueling analysis of the NBA playoffs. Of course, we still have the play-in games tonight: Chicago, Miami, Sacramento, New Orleans. Who you got? Chicago, Miami.
Tonight, I think I'm gonna go with Chicago. No Jimmy Butler. Yeah, I'm going with Chicago.
Yeah, the way Colby played last game, you called that one too. You're like, hey, if Colby White has a night, God, it's just so
Federal,
hard.
Man. 40.
I know. It's just so hard to pick against the Heat, though.
I mean,
And
it's no
Spo.
Jimmy, though. Their offense went stagnant. They were up 12 in the second half against the Sixers. Joel wasn't playing well to start, and you still squander that game? I don't know.
I know, man.
And I like the Bulls. They can score. They just have inefficient stretches where they just...
It's just like, what team can control the pace?
Yeah.
I'll take Chicago, too.
Okay.
And then you got New Orleans, Sacramento tonight is the late game. Who you got in that one? I got Sacramento with no Zion. And it's not just no Zion. It's no Zion, and BI is clearly not right. Like Brandon Ingram was on the bench after Zion went out in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
They needed him, and he was unable to go.
Yeah, this one's weird just because no Zion, then you got no Malik Monk, no Kevin Huerter. Can I really trust Keegan Murray to drop
To me, it's kind of simple.
Threes again?
Who are the best two players in the series?
Sabonis and Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's one game, but who's the best player on the other side of things right now?
You're right.
CJ?
I'm going with the Kings. Yep.
All due respect to CJ, you're at least the third best player.
Yeah.
In that, considering, and if BI was healthy, different situation, but he's not. Zion, no. I'll take Sacramento. All right. That leaves us to the rest of the place. You want to do this East-West, or you just want to go chronological here?
I think we should do East-West.
All right. Let's start off then with the 1-8 matchup, which we are predicting will be Chicago at Boston, in part because this is not going to take very long, with all due respect to whoever comes out of this thing tonight. Does Boston lose a game? I'm going to come up with one key question for every series. Does Boston lose a game? They went 64-18 in the regular season. They were 14 games better than the second-seeded Knicks. They averaged 120 a night. They only gave up 109. They were the only team in the entire NBA with a double-digit point differential, which is one of the stats I always look for when trying to find a champion. By the way, they also finished hot. They were 7-3 in their last 10. They lost 4 games at home all year. And can Chicago or Miami, whoever it winds up being, take a game off of the Celtics?
This is going to be a 4-0 sweep for the Celtics. Their experience, well-rested, very good at home. I think they got to, if they really want to cement themselves as, I guess, like the favorite, because I think they still are the favorite right now.
They're definitely the favorite, at least in the
then
East.
You need to go out there and show these guys that they don't belong. They were, what are they, the ninth? They were ninth in the East initially, so I think you go out there, you destroy them, and then you get some more rest, man, because you got 2 more series that are going to be very physical and very interesting.
The thing is, they have the body types and the versatility to beat anybody. And they can play any game. They can play, hey, let's post up, throw the ball down to KP. Like, his post-up numbers this year are outrageously efficient. They can obviously get you out in a transition game with Tatum and Jaylen Brown running. You know, they've got smart defenders. They've got multiple different body types who are good defenders. Unless Joel Embiid like single-handedly beats them, I just don't know what the threat is to them in the Eastern Conference. And this is why you add Drew Holiday. Like, as great as Marcus Smart was for them for a long time as the heart and soul, like, you want a better Marcus Smart. And for the things that you like Marcus Smart for, there aren't that many guys that are better. And Drew Holiday is. Drew Holiday is. And KP has been a revelation for them. Continuing what he did here in Washington. And I love what they've got. All right, let's do one more, and then we're going to blitz through the rest of these before we get to the 6 o'clock break, and then we do Mock Draft 4.0 coming up, a 3-round mock draft where we will focus especially on day 2. But the New York Knicks will take on the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot of people are criticizing the Knicks for winning the final game of the regular season, which pushed them ahead in the standings to this 2 seed and ultimately lands them facing Philly. Who is the bigger mismatch in the series? Joel Embiid versus the Knicks bigs, or Jalen Brunson versus Philly's guards?
I think it's Jalen Brunson versus the Sixers.
Really?
Yeah, he's been killing them all season long.
He's been killing everybody all season long.
Exactly. So I just think as he goes, the Knicks go, and they're going to need him to show up big. We already know what Joel Embiid is going to do. Even limited, he's still going to be, super impactful. But if the Knicks can get up and down the floor as they have, I think it will be interesting. But whoever comes out of this series is going to definitely be beat up and banged up going into the second round. I still think the Knicks have enough depth and just playmaking ability to really go out there. I can't depend on Nick Batum to show up every night for the 76ers. They're going to need somebody else. Tobias Harris hasn't been that guy. Buddy Hield has shown up in spurts. Kelly Oubre has shown up in spurts. But I think the Knicks as a whole, they've been more consistent. And getting Anunoby back is also huge for those guys.
I mean, to me, this series is going to kind of come down to Tyrese Maxey. If Tyrese Maxey can, obviously the Knicks are going to try to make this matchup not happen. But can you get Tyrese Maxey matched up on Jalen Brunson and make him defend? So can you wear him out a little bit on the defensive end? And then can he prove to be a star 2 ways? We know he's a good offensive player. He averaged almost 26 a game during the regular season. But, can he guard Jalen Brunson? Or is that going to come down to whoever else they try, whether it's a Kelly Oubre or, they don't have a lot of, Nick Batum. How many wing guard options do they have that you really, really like? Obviously, Kyle Lowry is there. Do you try to have Kyle rough him up a little bit? Just throw your weight around, Kyle. Similar body type kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just Jalen's used to probably bigger, longer guys. You just say, Kyle Lowry, do your Philly dog thing and go. Like, I don't know what you probably try that for like 5-6 minutes a game. But, Pat Bev is Pat Bev is gone. He's in Milwaukee now.
Yep.
So, Buddy, like, I don't know what they do with
I
Jalen.
don't have too many answers.
But nobody's got an answer for Embiid. So I think if you're Philly, like, this is another one where pace is huge. If I'm Philly, I want to slow it down a little bit. If I'm New York, I want to get up and run. And I think the longer the series goes, the more it favors New York because Joel is still not 100%.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at the regular season series, I mean, Joel only played in one of those games, but the Knicks dominated the other 3 contests when he wasn't in, and when he was there, they won by 30 as well. So I think the Knicks are going into this confident, man. They've beaten them.
Which is like New York sports fan, they're like, oh, God, I know where this happens.
Time.
Charlie Brown kicking the football, big time. We get back here on the Hoffman Show. We'll preview the rest of the Eastern Conference. We'll roll through the West as well. A condensed NBA playoff preview here on the Team 980. This was way before 2010.
Oh, definitely.
Way before. This was like high school, if not middle school, for me.
This one, you were in high school?
Might even been middle school, dude.
Good gracious.
You were like kindergarten. You were barely alive.
All right, I wasn't that young.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We got playoff series to preview, and get your serious hat on. All right, let's get to it. By the way, we were just talking in the break about something that happened after the show yesterday that thankfully is recorded for posterity. Anthony learned a new word yesterday, and you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it in real things, real people said in real microphones, because it was in a voice note to my wife, who thankfully, because I did not save it fast enough, saved the voice note. So that is coming up at 6:45, 1 hour from now. It is the kind of thing that you want to make a mental note of, that if you are not going to still be listening because you will have gotten home and, gotten to your family or whatever it is that you're doing your Friday night, at some point this weekend, go to the Hoffman Show podcast feed and check out the final segment of this show, because it is that funny. Okay, Bucks and Pacers, the 3-6 matchup in the East. Anthony,
man, we might have an
we're gonna
upset.
go 1, 2, 3 on this one. We'll give analysis afterwards. But ready?
Yep.
Making picks here. 1, 2, 3. Pacers. Yeah.
Good gracious.
Giannis is probably out. Dame's, I don't know. There's some like internet drama with Dame. I heard some stuff yesterday. I don't want to get into it because I haven't read up enough on it. But like the Bucks season has been a disaster, and instead of making it better, they hired Doc Rivers and made it worse.
Yeah.
Like,
really?
It is amazing how much ownership can matter. And I know that sounds a little weird. You're like, wait, what? Jimmy Haslam, the guy that owns the Browns, like bought the Bucks over the summer or like late last year, sometime there. And like kind of since, things have definitely been a little haywire. Suddenly things aren't as good as they were under previous ownership. Like Giannis is still Giannis, and that covers for a lot. But damn, dude, like they are a mess right now. 3-7 in their last 10, by the way, coming into the playoffs. Give me the Pacers. This, by the way, there's also these games are gonna be like 150 to 135.
Yep, you ain't lying. The Pacers run the floor. The Bucks, I don't know if they'll be able to keep up. During the regular season, they struggled. There were a couple of times Bucks at full strength still managed to lose to the Pacers. Without Giannis, with Dame dealing with stuff off the court, it just points in the direction Pacers win. Man,
I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go with Indiana as well. And then Cavs and Magic. I don't know what to make of this series. Like,
Me either.
I mean, it's a 4-5, so which kind of makes sense. I don't know what Cleveland is. If Cleveland can resemble something at full strength and play up to their potential, they should win this series. If not, like this Orlando group's like basically everyone on their team outside of their like Joe Ingles, their vet. This is all of their first playoff experience. So what's the atmosphere like? How big is the moment for them? It just is not the kind of series that a young team typically wins, but Cleveland has been like all over the place, yet they still won 48 games. So I don't know what to make of this series at all.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting one. I do think Cleveland manages to pull it off. I think their size will be a huge factor in this the series. On the wing.
And I think especially defensively, like the fact that a guy like Mobley can guard Banchero, like that's a problem for Orlando because there just aren't a lot of dudes around who can, who are big enough and long enough and strong enough to guard that dude.
Yeah, and then also on the offensive side of the ball, it's going to be tough stopping Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. I just think defensively, I think the Cavs will be able to withstand everything that the Magic throw at them. I think it'll be interesting though. Definitely a good series.
It should be a low key fun series. Obviously not smaller markets, not a ton of star power.
Yeah.
But should be fun. All right, Western Conference. Let's roll through these. We got like a minute on each of these series, which is we can do more on them as they go for sure because these playoffs are fun. Oklahoma City has got the winner of New Orleans Sacramento tonight. It really is just I want to see how they handle it from a maturity standpoint, especially if they wind up facing Sacramento. Like Sacramento was kind of them last year, the upstart team. They have been through a heartbreaking playoff loss. What happens, and especially if I don't know what's Herter and Malik Monk's injury situation? Are those guys out, or are they potentially coming back?
Herter's done. Malik, I'm not sure about Malik. Yeah, I think he could come back.
Because especially if they can get back to fuller strength, then it's more of a fair fight. But like, how do you handle your business as the Oklahoma City Thunder as this young team is, I think, the big question on that series. Denver, LA, obviously is the star-studded series, and like the Lakers have a chance because they're them, because they have LeBron, because they have AD, and you can make an argument that they are the second and third best players in the series. However, if either one of them doesn't play up to the level, and or Jamal Murray plays up to his playoff Jamal Murray level, the Nuggets are going to win this in 5 games.
5 games. Hey, at least the Lakers will get one. That's all I'm hoping for, to be honest.
It's different than what you said the other day when it's like, oh, we just got to get through.
Yeah, I mean, you get these guys out the way.
Yeah, right. That's what you said.
You take these lumps and bruises right now.
Yeah. And then you go home and rest them because you lost 4-1. Like the Lakers, like this thing could go 6 or 7, and I think part of this is like how much damage do the Nuggets take? Because they are not as good as they were last year. They still could win the championship. To be clear, those two statements can be true together. They are not as good as they were last year. Like Bruce Brown, they never really got the guy to replace him all year. Like they were hoping for Christian Brown, for instance, to take a jump that he didn't quite take. Now, maybe he makes that jump in the playoffs. Like sometimes that happens where a guy's just like, lights are on, time to go. But I do think that there are, like, if LeBron can control the game in his LeBron savant-like way, they've got a shot. The problem is the Nuggets have a guy who can do the same exact thing in Jokic and can control the game from everywhere. And I just think they'll ultimately be too much.
Yeah, and also Jokic bailed them out in a lot of late game situations last year, end of quarters. I mean, it's just I just hope the Lakers take this personal because again they have not beaten the Nuggets in 8 straight games. So go out there, try to steal one on the road, and then we'll see where you guys end up. But make sure they take it personal.
Davis has got to be the best player in the series. If they legitimately want to win, AD's got to be the best player in the series, which can be hard because the best player on the planet is probably playing on the other side. T-Wolves and Suns. Oh, I hate this series. I don't like either team. There's something about the T-Wolves that I just don't really like. And I think it's like the Karl Anthony Towns-ness of it all. Even if I like Anthony Edwards a lot as a player.
Yeah.
My thoughts on the Suns are well established. I don't like them. I just a bunch of guys that have not quite ever gotten it done to the level that you'd expect. Book, I kind of exempt from that group. But I don't know, man. I got nothing for you on this one.
Yeah, I think tough series to gauge as a whole.
It's going to come down. It's going to come down. Can the Suns defend? If the Suns can defend, they can win the series. If not, then.
But we've seen
because the T-Wolves can defend.
Exactly.
But here's the other thing, right? Is traditionally in playoff series, as great as Rudy Gobert has been defensively, teams have been able to play him off the floor. They pull him into pick and rolls, and he has never been able to quite solve that problem. If this is the year, then okay, this will be fun. If not, then the Suns are going to pull an upset. And Minnesota is going to go back to the drawing board and be like, what are we even trying to do here? Last but not least, this is obviously the best series. Clippers, maybe the Nuggets, Lakers could be good. But Clippers and Mavs, it really comes down to Kawhi, if Kawhi is healthy. If Kawhi is healthy, I think the Clippers win this series. I think they have enough. I think stopping Luka, they've got some bodies they can throw at him. Same thing with Kyrie. But if not, then Dallas has got this. You're vigorously shaking your head no. You're all in on Dallas.
I'm going with Luka and Kyrie Irving. I think Luka, he's going to get full control of the game and be able to, assert himself and his dominance that way. I don't think that as good as Kawhi Leonard is, as good as PG-13 is, as good as Norman Powell, all the bodies you want to throw at him, I just think Luka's greatness is going to be too much to overwhelm them. And the Mavs being able to go out and get Gafford and all these PJ Washington, I think that attitude.
Look, they've been killing it, but Kawhi is
much.
a series disrupt. Kawhi could be the best player in the series. He's still, when he's right, he's that good, and he is a playoff assassin.
Did we not watch Luka last year?
Yeah, Kawhi has got hurt last year too.
Luka steps up in these moments.
Sure.
Kyrie steps up in these moments.
Those guys, I get it. I get it. The Mavs are really good, but
so fun to watch.
When the Clippers have been just on it this year, when all four of those dudes have been healthy, they are something special. And Kawhi has missed enough time that they've now slipped to the 4 seed, and we'll see. But if Kawhi's healthy, I'll take the Clippers. But I might be wrong. Like it's 50, 55, 45.
Okay. I'm gonna make sure
Kawhi's probably not going to stay healthy, so take the Mavs. That's the analysis.
Are you taking the Mavs?
If I have to do a pure prediction, yeah, probably, because I just don't trust Kawhi to stay healthy.
That's fair.
So there's that. When we get back, mock draft 4.0. Wrapping up the Friday edition of the Hoffman Show, our final hour here on the Team 980 and always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, and I will tell you now, if you have always been curious about checking out the show on YouTube, now is a good time to do it because we are able to, with our setup today, get the draft simulator on your television screen, on your phone screen, on your tablet screen. So I will also say if you ever want to go back and check any of this stuff out on demand on YouTube, say you're driving in now and you're going to listen to this first part of Mock Draft 4.0, definitely worth checking out this weekend. The rest of it that you miss on YouTube at Craig Hoffman or at the Team 980. But we are streaming live at the Team 980 right now, where you can follow along in the war room with us for Mock Draft 4.0. This will be a 3-round mock draft where we pick for just the Commanders. We will debate quarterback, because that has become suddenly a debate again at number 2, and then we will watch the rest of the first round play out, and we will keep an eye on whether or not we want to trade back into the first round. When we did this a week ago, we did not ultimately make that determination. I think there's definitely a chance that we will today, but we will see. So with that, Ant, anything else that we should do?
I think you've covered all the bases, baby. Let's get it.
All right, then. We are in the war room officially. Here it is, Mock Draft 4.0. Off we go. We hit Start Draft, and either I'm going to throw a hissy fit. Oh, I have to hit Start Draft in the actual window that this is existing in. Oh, no, Ant. Oh, no, I think I've outsmarted myself. Oh, this
Did
is...
it freeze?
No, it's... I'm trying to hit Start Draft on my computer on the StreamYard link, not on the actual draft page. It helps if I have the actual draft page up in front of me, you know? I can't... It's like hitting a touch screen, full screen, when it's not an actual touch screen. It doesn't actually help you. All right, so now I got the actual draft in front of me. Now I can go to the actual war room and I hit Start Draft. Okay, there we go. The Washington Commanders are on the clock after the Chicago Bears have taken Caleb Williams at 1. So we've taken J.J. McCarthy in a mock draft. We've taken Jaden Daniels in a mock draft. Those two are obviously still under consideration. And then there is Drake May, who suddenly is a co-favorite to go number 2 in some of the betting markets. Clearly, the whoever's making those odds. And now, it's worth pointing out, last year, all of a sudden, Will Levis, boom, shot up. They got people on that one, or they got, depending on how you want to look at it. But I think this far out from the draft, and with all this smoke coming out around Daniels in this meeting, and the agent maybe being upset, maybe not being upset, clearly that Washington hasn't made their mind up yet, and they're certainly not telling anyone. I do sometimes just go back to, what have we thought all along? And there is a reason why Drake May was considered, like why this draft has been Caleb Williams and Drake May for 2 years. And I know Jaden Daniels was awesome last year, and I have talked many times at this point about why I would be perfectly happy and comfortable taking him with the pick. But I was listening to the Athletic Football Show yesterday, and Nate Tice made such a compelling case for Drake. And obviously, like, Nate's King Drake, that's like his guy. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting about his case, Ant, was, you know, a guy like McCarthy, who I'm obviously super high on, has been working with private quarterback coaches for a long, long time. Drake May is an athlete. Drake May grew up in a basketball family. His brothers played like D1. Obviously one of his brothers, Luke, was like a pretty good player at North Carolina. But he was a multi-sport athlete who didn't do like full-time football in the way that a lot of these kids do full-time football. And so when we see some of the inconsistencies in his play, it's because he's still raw as a prospect, and yet he's already this good. So when we think about forward projection and what he can become, I am so intrigued. And I don't know that that's ultimately going to make me next week when we do our final mock and like when I got to make a prediction on Thursday that I'm going to ultimately say like Drake is the guy. But there is a really compelling case for Drake May.
Yeah, I think all the things that you just mentioned, but also just I think who he was at UNC, like he had to go through some adversity this year. O-line wasn't all that good.
That's being nice.
O-line wasn't all that good. Lost some talent, and he still went out there, performed, and did the best that he could. And that's really all you can ask for out of your star quarterback. But I think when it comes to taking him in, at number 2, I just think even if you do view him as a project, as somebody that needs a little bit more work, that's why you went out and got a guy like Marcus Mariota, where you can actually sit behind him, wait until Drake May develops, and then go from there. A lot of this boils down to coaching, and then also who the player is. So if they believe Drake May to be a great leader on and off the field, I think it makes sense to me.
I think you may. Well, so one thing before everyone in the comments, when we post this for the on-demand version, jumps on Ant. Like, that's not to say like, oh yeah, they signed Marcus Mariota, they're actually set at quarterback. But if Marcus has to start a couple of games, he'll start you a couple games, and it is what it is. But he's a guy that's been a number 2 pick and been around and can be a good mentor. But I think that the project narrative maybe has even gotten out of control with Drake May. He is certainly someone who needs work to get to his ceiling. But I think what you said is accurate. Look at what he is right now. Like, it's not like he's terrible. It's not like he's unplayable. If you started Drake May week 1, it's going to be real rocky up and down.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like he's unplayable. It's not like he's not worth the number 2 pick. It's just that he is so talented yet so raw that he can grow into something really potentially special. And I think that Robert Mays on that same show with Nate and Dane the other day, this was the Our Guys edition of the Athletic Football Show. If you want to check it out this weekend, it's a really, really good edition of their podcast. But Robert said, we talk about with Jaden, for instance, how his running ability gives him a floor that you can play him, and there's only so bad he can be because of how good he is as a runner and as a scrambler. Drake May is an elite scrambler as a prospect. Again, the second most 10-plus yard runs in Division I over the last couple of years behind Jaden Daniels is Drake May. And so, again, he scares the bejesus out of me because there are times it looks like he just forgets how to play football. But at 21 years old, with the lack of experience, again, his senior year of high school canceled because of COVID, all the adversity he's been through, and he's still this good. And also because we're doing this for entertainment, and we've already taken Jaden Daniels in one and J.J. McCarthy in another.
Mm-hmm.
I say we take Drake May here and see what the draft falls like from here with the rest of it. So that's the argument for Drake May. Yes, there are arguments against it. Yes, there are arguments just as strong for Jaden. And I think there's a really strong argument to be made for J.J. McCarthy. But in this particular edition of this mock draft, for funsies, we're going to take Drake May. And then let's see what happens. Jaden Daniels, 3. Malik Neighbors, 4. Marvin Harrison, 5. McCarthy, 6. Adunze, 7. Oh, that's interesting. Wait, can I pause that for a second? Adunze, 7. No Joe Alt, 7. So that's Brian Callahan getting his way as the head coach over his dad in Bill Callahan, which pushes Joe Alt down to 9. But it actually doesn't change the top 9 players the way that most people have them. So I think that's worth noting. Brock Bowers, 10. That's good for the Commanders because that's one place that a tackle could go. All right, let's pick things back up. Kenyon Mitchell, Terrion Arnold. Oh, we got a quarterback run. JT Latham, Troy Fontenot, Talisi Fuaga, Jared Verse, Brian Thomas, Fashanu, Murphy, Barton, A.D. Mitchell. All right, the Eagles are on the clock. We have not seen Amarius Mims go off. I'm going to draw a cutoff at 25, Ant. If Amarius Mims is still on the board at 25, I think we need to consider. Although, dude, if that's the case and Mims is still on at 25, I'm willing to get to 27 and see if Guyton's still there. Because getting to 27 is even easier than 25.
Yeah.
Ooh, this is interesting.
I'm nobody bust in front of us.
DeJean, Newton, Oh, Mims goes to Dallas. All right, so we're at 26, and Guyton's still on the board. How risky do we want to get here? I don't think Tampa's going to take him. They don't need a tackle.
Nah, they don't. The Cardinals
don't
either.
Here's the other thing, though, that like is not going to happen in this mock draft, because I don't think PFF does like simulated trades on their own. But you also have to worry about someone else jumping up ahead of you.
That's what I was thinking.
Here's the other thing, the way this board has fallen. The edges have fallen as well. You got Verse who went, but then you're still no Chop Robinson, still no Darius Robinson.
Also, the Titans.
Still no Latu.
Oh, yeah.
So we might be getting into be able to get a premier edge falling down to us as well at 36. Like, we're definitely going to have some of that second group of tackles that we like. I don't know that Guyton's going to get all the way there, but there's some guys that I'm definitely interested at.
I think a team like the Titans, since they didn't take a tackle in this mock, is a team we should be worried about.
Yeah.
Jumping us anyway.
For sure.
Oh, no, we have a pick before. No, never mind.
We have 36. I'm going to at least let the Bucks pick. All right, so they take Latu. All right, let's take a break, come back. Ant and I are going to deliberate. We might be trading up with the Cardinals at 27. Mock Draft 4.0 continues next on the Team 980.
To me at all? Oh, my bad.
All right, it's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, where you can see we are in mock draft 4.0. We took Drake May second for the Commanders. We're now taking McCarthy, Daniels, and May all in our mock drafts here. This is our fourth endeavor into this. How do we wait? We've had 4 of these, and we've now taken 3 different quarterbacks. Who did we take twice? Did we take Daniels twice? Did we take McCarthy twice?
We took McDaniels twice. I mean,
Daniels.
Yeah.
Okay, we did take Daniels twice. Okay, but now we've taken Drake May because, there's a compelling argument to be made, and so we did. But we are now at pick 27, and while we were hoping to get really lucky and Amarius Mims still be available to us, he did go 24 to Dallas. There are definitely some solid edge rushers, most namely for me, Darius Robinson still on the board, but I don't think he's the kind of guy you trade up for. Tyler Guyton potentially is. He's the guy that I'm targeting here. And I think to go from 36 to 27 is just not that big of a task. So if we can trade 27, or let's see, if we go 36 and 152 for 27 and 162, and then maybe a 6th the next year, 3 for 2. No, that's probably too. I think we just do 36 and 152 for 27 and 162. No, I probably need to include one more from Washington side of it.
Yeah.
Or let's just make it even simpler. Let's just do this. Let's just do 2 for 1. 36 and 139, which is a 5th, for 27.
You don't want 162?
I mean, we could do, actually, no, there you go. 36, 139, and 152 for 27 and 162.
Yeah.
All right, let's see if they go for it. Oh, no, I hit the wrong button. But thankfully, we actually lucked out. They didn't take a tackle. Tyler Guyton's still on the board. Okay, so now we're at 29.
Good gracious.
Now we're at the Lions. It's so funny when people leave comments on this, and it's like everyone has accidentally hit resume trade. Okay, so now we just got to go from 36 to 29. In order to do that, Detroit's definitely looking to add some picks here. 152. Honestly, that might be good enough.
Yeah.
All right. Where's the
2 for 1
offer trade? Oh yeah, they took it. Okay, so now we're gonna go and take Tyler Guyton, the tackle out of Oklahoma, who's a freakish athlete, and voila, we've got ourselves a tackle. By the way, got right in front of Baltimore, who took Jordan Morgan. And then we'll catch everybody up in a second as we are back on the clock at 40. And damn, that hurts right there. This is why if you can give up 40 instead of 36, this is actually a great exercise, the way this worked out. So we took Guyton at 29. Jordan Morgan went at 30. Jackson Powers-Johnson went at 31 to San Francisco. Troy Franklin, the receiver out of Oregon, great pick for Kansas City at 32. Ladd McConkey goes to Carolina at 33, which absolutely is not happening because if we get to this situation, the Las Vegas Raiders are trading to 33 for Michael Penix. 100% going to happen. McConkey, though, 33, the wide receiver out of Georgia. Jalen Polk, the wide receiver out of Washington, goes 34. Zach Frazier, the center out of West Virginia, 35. Peyton Wilson, 36, in that pick that we gave up to the Lions. Then Keon Coleman, wide receiver, Florida State. Adisa Isaac, edge. Darius Robinson, edge. 38, 39, right before we're on the clock at 40. That sucks.
Yeah.
Here's what I would say, though. If I see that happening, I probably call the Chargers potentially, and I go, and this is why teams do this. I say this every time we do a mock draft amp. The reason teams go through these exercises is because they want to understand, okay, if I trade or if I do this, what do the teams around me need? If I have a guy that falls, who do I need to get in front of? because I think Isaac and Robinson are two of the edge players that Washington is definitely targeting. And if you think that they could go to either New York or Tennessee, you call the Chargers and you give them a 7th rounder to move up from 40 to 37.
Man.
But I was trying to catch up on the trades and who got picked, and I didn't. The draft was moving too fast in mock draft world here.
So are you willing? So is DN where you're looking to go? Because, again, yesterday we know Linnell, he came in. He had wide receiver, cornerback, wide receiver and tackle.
So I'm going to put up the position of needs on the board here.
Okay.
Wide receiver, corner,
Yep.
and then edge and offensive tackle. I'm still going to leave up. So best available players, guys that I would absolutely consider taking here. Mike Sanders still corner out of Michigan. He's a nickel. Again, I don't know that's the direction they want to go, but if you want a nickel, he's arguably the best one in the draft. Roman Wilson, speedy receiver out of Michigan, definitely interested. Logan loves him. Some Ricky Pearsall. Pearsall, 6'1", 192, a little bit of an older player. He's 23 and a half, almost 24 years old, but he's you see this PFF scouting report here, a ready-made slot receiver who can contribute early in the NFL. Xavier Legette is definitely interesting. A lot of people love him. Ennis Rakestraw, TJ Tampa, depending on your flavor of corner. I think all of those guys are worthy of this 40th pick. Marshawn Nealand, probably you want later, but that actually gets me to going, okay, what if we recouped a pick here? Trade back. So we got the Dolphins at 55, the Lions at 61, or the Raiders at 44. If I can get 44 for 40 and 77 is too much.
Yeah, I'm about to say that.
112? Like, is that worth it?
I think 148.
And 148?
No. Not one. I think 112 is too rich.
Well, I'm going to let
move
them
up 4 spots. Oh, okay.
That's their pick, not ours.
Oh yeah, it is. You're right.
Yeah, we're getting 112.
Let's get it.
So I think that's interesting. Let's see what else is out there. Dolphins 55, 158. That's not that intriguing, unless you can be like, hey, give me your second next year if they're silly enough to do that. Lions, they don't have the. I mean, if 61 and 73. That's interesting. That's a far drop, though. I think I'd probably rather just go with Vegas.
The Raiders, yep.
And move back 4 spots. Let's offer that. They did it. They're going to take Penix.
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
Yep. Xavier Worthy comes off. Newbin comes off. Ennis Rakestraw. So now we got most of the same guys available here. I'd say let's go ahead and make a pick. I'm kind of intrigued by Pearsall as a slot receiver for sure. Let's see. Because now we got 44, 67, 78, 100 still. Wide receiver. I want to see still tackle. I want to see where did we go? Where's edge? There it is. Thank you. And we want corner. I mean, Legette is also super intriguing. You got a guy who's 6'3", 227. Some people think he could be like a wide receiver 1. There's obviously opinions are split. Some people are like, I don't get it with him.
Yeah.
So I'm going to narrow this down to Legette if we want an outside receiver, Pearsall if we want an inside receiver, or...
You want to go corner here?
If we want to go corner, we're probably looking at TJ Tampa.
Or are you more so just looking for best player available in a situation like this?
I mean, you're looking at best player. Like, everyone, there's no such thing at this point in the draft, to me, as best player available. And here's why. It's a really actually interesting point. You're grading these guys in tiers, right? And as you go down, the number of players in that tier is greater. All of these players are in the same tier. The all on the draft chart. You know, you got tier 1. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors at wide receiver, and Caleb Williams at quarterback, and maybe 1 or 2 other players. How much you like Joe Alt or how much you like whoever else, right? And that tier is pretty thin. Then next up, you got probably 10, 12 players that also have first-round grades, maybe as many as 15. And then you get about 20 players deep into the draft. And then you have another 25, 30 players that all have second round grades. And that's why you then take the best player available at a position that actually helps your football team.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say, you want inside receiver, outside receiver, or corner?
I think where we are, I think I want to go receiver.
I
and
do
I want to
too.
go
Pearsall or Leggett. Do you want a slot guy or do you want an outside guy?
I'm gonna go with Pearsall.
I'm leaning that way. It's really tempting because Leggett's ceiling is really high. But
Is he more of a run after the catch kind of, or is he Keon Coleman, like where he's gonna go up and like dunk on you?
He's definitely not Keon Coleman. I mean, here you go, tied 112th for yards after catch, but sometimes that has to do with, how well your quarterback throws you open.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Pearsall. Logan loves Pearsall. We're gonna make Logan happy. If you hate that, send your hate mail to Logan Paulson. All right. So we're going to let the second round play out here. And then we will come back with picks 67, 78, and 100 to wrap up Mock Draft 4.0 here on The Hoffman Show. Mock Draft 4.0 on the Hoffman Show. We will do our final mock draft on Wednesday, the day before I leave for Detroit. The plan is to have Linnell come in, and the three of us alternate picks in the first round. Of course, we'll react to that first round on Friday and preview round number 2, which is really kind of where our focus is today. I should say day 2. Of course, Commanders have 36 and 40 unless they trade up like we did. We took Drake May at number 2, continuing to mix up our quarterbacks. We're able to get all the way down to 29 and then a slight trade up for Tyler Guyton, the tackle out of Oklahoma. And now we are sitting at pick 67. We also made a trade in the second round to go back from 40 to 44. Ultimately took Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver out of Florida. So now we're sitting at 67. Definitely could use an edge. Definitely could use a corner. I think that is kind of where my focus is. I do think it's worth noting the double tackle route is in play here, and Kieran Amadiji would be a solid pick at 57. He's a real young guy. Not a ton of experience, obviously playing against high-level competition coming from the Ivy League, but interesting athlete. Obviously, he's fairly smart as a person. He went to Yale, so that just feels like it's worth mentioning. So we're going to, though, go corner, and we're going to go edge here. And there's not really an edge that sticks out, which is a bit of a bummer. There are some guys like Braylon Trice is interesting from Washington later on. And some of these guys, have some pass rush juice, even if they need a lot of other work. But I think Andrew Phillips, the cornerback out of Kentucky, is a very interesting guy here. For PFF's rankings, he's clearly the highest. He's the best player available of these two positions by quite a bit. He's 20 spots higher than the next guy, Xavier Thomas, the edge out of Clemson. Of course, KJ Henry's former teammate. But Phillips is a guy that's played some inside-outside. He's pretty big. He's 6 foot. He's not the Kyrie Jackson, the 6'4" corner. But he's physical. He's played inside. He's played outside. And that positional versatility, considering we don't know exactly what Washington needs yet, give me a physical dude who's got not too much experience and is a bit of a moldable piece of clay. I'm definitely interested in Andrew Phillips here.
You say Andrew Phillips. I'm looking at Kyrie Jackson, man. He's 6'4". He ran a 4.28 40.
He didn't run a 4.28?
Yes. He paced all of the corners. He had the fastest one.
Oof.
But I'm looking at him, and granted, he does have, some inexperience. He's only started in 14 games. But I'm thinking this is a guy that you maybe teach, you mold, you develop, and he could really be somebody that you could use down the stretch. And I'm just looking at the other corners that we have. We have Benjamin St. Juste, big corner. We have Michael Davis, who we got from the Chargers, another big corner. I don't know. I think Kyrie Jackson could fit that mold. Again, we don't necessarily know what the new defensive staff wants to do, but I don't know. I will be willing to take a gamble on Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon.
I think he's still going to be there at 78.
Okay.
So I'm going to let's see. If we take that off, say who else is available. You could go, if you wanted to go halfback, you can go Jalen Wright. Junior Colson, the linebacker out of Michigan, is interesting as well. Mm. If you want to take a huge flyer on a wide receiver, if you watch the 10 best plays from Jermaine Burton from Alabama, he's a top 10 pick in the draft.
Yeah.
If you watch the rest of him, you're like, I don't know. So he is mega intriguing here. Trey Benson, there's some people that think he's the best back in the draft. Johnny Wilson, if you want to convert him to tight end. Kalen Bullock, the safety out of USC, I think is interesting. So I feel pretty good. I will say, again, because we were kind of letting the draft run, if some of these names, like Jaden Hicks out of Washington State, want him. Malachi Corley out of Western Kentucky, wide receiver, want him. Nice. Edgerrin Cooper, linebacker out of A&M, want him. Marshawn Nealand, edge out of Western Michigan, want him. So, we kind of got, I don't want to say we got screwed, but another situation where some of those dudes start to fall and you get to 60, 60 at the back end of this second round, and maybe Washington's like, hey, Buffalo, you want to pick up an extra 5th rounder? You want a future whatever? because I got some guys I want. So this decision's harder than it should be because a bunch of dudes that I really like just went. So I'm going to narrow it down to Andrew Phillips out of Kentucky, the corner, Junior Colson, the linebacker out of Michigan, Jermaine Burton, wide receiver out of Alabama. That's my list, and then everyone else we can consider at 78. We still got 100, by the way.
I like Junior Colson.
Okay. Junior Colson. All right. Probably not. I would probably go Phillips, but I don't hate this pick.
Okay.
Going it. Junior Colson. All right. Patrick Paul. Oh, he was still available? Dang. Definitely would have gone him. He's not going to be available there. Roger Rosengarten's another one that if he's available that late, I would probably consider him. All right, so now we're back up at 78. I'm like, should I check the tackles? I forget sometimes that PFF's tackle rankings are terrible. Puny, this is too rich for him. He's definitely the next guy, though. Okay, so now we lost a couple of those guys, but not too many. We lost, obviously, Andrew Phillips. We lost Amadiji. We lost Coleman. We lost Burton. So now if you want to go corner and go, because we didn't go corner last time. Now if you want to go Kyrie Jackson, I'm down. I will say Kalen Bullock is really interesting, super physical, safety, but it can also play some center field. So he's interesting. These backs are interesting. Marshawn Lloyd, Ray Davis. Jalen McMillan as a wide receiver is also interesting. He's probably playing. He was obviously with Michael Penix and did a really nice job last year for them. I'd probably lean Jackson here, just take the swing. But any other thoughts from you, Ant? Any other positions to look at?
Not here. I do think
you want Kyrie Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, you talk.
We still got 100. So
yeah, we still got 100. But I think right now I wouldn't look at any other positions, to be honest.
Johnny Wilson and converting him to tight end is definitely interesting. Eric All, Cade Stover, Ben Sinnott, like those guys are all. I'd say if we want to look at one of them at 100, that's good with me. We'll take Kyrie Jackson here at 78. Then you see Wilson come off the board. Michael Pratt, the quarterback, I should say, out of Tulane, goes to the Rams. McMillan goes to the Cowboys. Bucky Irving to the Packers. Cooper Beebe is a guard that a lot of people like. He goes 93 to Baltimore. And then we are on the clock. Eric All, Cade Stover, Ben Sinnott. Sinnott's like a crazy athlete, if I'm thinking of the right guy. Jack of all trades who can line up in the backfield on the line of scrimmage and at receiver. Versatile type of guy. Good understudy for Zach Ertz for sure. Well-rounded for Cade Stover. High floor role player with tight end one potential. And then, you get a tight end out of Iowa.
Hard
to pass up. Don't have a full scouting report from PFF on Eric All. He's 92 on their big board.
That's my guy.
That's your guy? Just take the tight end out of Iowa?
They have a good track record.
They sure do. All right, Eric All wraps up our mock draft. Hey, we earned a PFF award. I don't know what that's for, Ant, but we did it. So that is our mock draft for today. Mock draft 4.0. Drake May, Tyler Guyton, Ricky Pearsall, Junior Colson, Kyrie Jackson, Eric All. We get a pretty good grade. We got an A+ for May, B+ for Guyton, B- for Pearsall. They didn't like the Colson pick as much. Well, screw you. Overall draft grade, A- from PFF. And that's what everyone lives for, Ant, is their draft grade from PFF. We get back, we wrap up the show with an in-house version of Real Things Real People Said in Real Microphones. Funny things from producers of afternoon radio programs on the Team 980. We made it. It's the Hoffman Show on a Friday. We have 10 minutes left in the show. But MGM Tonight is next. We did a mock draft. We talked to Yates. We previewed the NBA playoffs. We defended Topgolf. The integrity of Topgolf shall not be slandered on this radio show or group interviews for, positions that involve group dynamics and settings. And we did not get a chance on Wednesday to talk about what we learned from our mock draft. So I feel like we should do that real quick now because we've now done 2 of them this week. What did you learn from mock draft 3.0 where we took Jaden Daniels on Wednesday and then we picked for every single team, you'll remember. A couple of trades in there, some interesting how the board fell. But mock draft 3.0 and then obviously mock draft 4.0 today where we picked for just the Commanders in these 3 rounds, and we moved around a little bit to get some different guys.
I just realized, you really can't sit back. A guy that you might want, you actually need to go get because, again, the tackles, the longer you wait, it's going to be a run. And when that run starts, you might want to get in line before, you miss out on a player that you really might want. And I think even today, with Mims, had we not had the cutoff at 25, 26, and, Mims was still available at 23, we could have possibly made the call, but you can't wait. It's not a waiting game when it comes to this draft.
No, and the thing is that the one aspect that we don't even have to deal with when we do these is other teams, which I'm hoping we maybe get a little bit of a fight once or twice on Wednesday if we do this with Linnell, where, hey, you're on the clock, and I'm like, hey, I got a trade for you, and Linnell's like, well, I got one too. That's something that we need to consider, right?
Yep.
And so I think that thinking about that and how that all goes is definitely very interesting because the Commanders need to be ready, and they will be. But as you think about this, you're not just battling the teams that have needs below you, right? You're not just battling, oh, well, we know that Team X at 2 picks from now needs a tackle. If you're thinking about trading up, you're not the only one. By the same token, if you have multiple good options, you can't be afraid to move back because multiple teams might be after someone that you don't covet as much for, whether it's positionally or just the scheme, evaluation-wise, you're in a different spot. And if someone wants to come up, you got to be ready to move back. Not necessarily off of 2, but I think that's one thing that hasn't been talked about necessarily enough. And it's hard because everything's been talked about, but do you trade back up into the first round and get rid of 36 and then trade back off of 40, even if it's by a couple of spots, and then you're back at 6 picks in the top 100 if you can? Can you pick up another late 3rd rounder, for instance, that you might give up, or at least get back on the same number of picks on the day? Or I think the even better thing potentially is, depending on how far you go and what you're willing to give up, do you try to get a future 2nd or a future 3rd? Because those picks tend to be undervalued. And for a team that's got a long vision and a long rebuild, it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
All right. Next week on the show. Oh, we should have said this way more often today. Monday, 6 p.m., Dan Orlovsky. So we got that. Do we have anything else booked next week yet? I know we've been working on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we have some things that are...
Charles Davis from Take Command will be on the show. We've had Charles on Take Command. We taped it already. It's going live in your podcast feed on Monday. So definitely subscribe to Take Command and then check that out. But if you can't listen to the podcast, we'll air some of that here on the Team 980 for sure on Monday. Orlovsky live, 6 p.m. Monday. I think that's all we got right now, but we got a bunch of irons in the fire. So next week's shows will be fire, and we'll see which irons we pull out and do our thing with. All right. I think it's time for real things, Ant.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
I have no idea what time I'm supposed to end this show.
56:05.
56:05.
Yeah.
That was pretty rough there.
Yeah, I was trying to do the math real fast, and the math wasn't mathing, you know?
Boy, do I ever.
Yeah.
Boy, do I ever. So we were going to try to play this yesterday, and we wound up having to bag real things yesterday because I made a serious point to end the show. But yesterday, I was tuned into the Chris Russell show, and Russell and Linnell were bickering at each other. And Matt Essick, king of punchy one-liners, king of lightening the moment, king of just taking the air out of the room with a funny little bit, decided he was going to pop in and provide some levity. And it was real funny.
Can I ask Linnell a question just in regards to that? Given that we are the number 2 overall draft pick, are picking high, and because we are picking the number 2 overall draft pick, you could say that we are not what one would consider a good team. Should we be drafting a quarterback then because we're so high? Because we're not good? We're not a good team, so should we be drafting a quarterback and starting them immediately?
I think he's saying that.
I mean, you're just being facetious.
No, I think he's saying.
No, I'm being pedantic.
I think what he's saying today is.
Honestly,
Great.
I wish that we had the ability to isolate just Essig's mic, and I could just have a drop of Essig going, I'm being pedantic. Now you're just being facetious. No, I'm being pedantic.
And starting them
Well,
immediately?
I think he's saying that.
I mean, you're just being facetious.
No, I think he's saying.
No, I'm being pedantic.
By the way, pedantic, in case you had to look it up, is off of the noun pedant, a person who is excessively concerned with minor details and rules or with displaying academic learning.
So you didn't know what it meant before that?
I mean, I kind of did.
I did.
But I definitely have a better, clearer, understanding now. Pedantic.
Yeah.
A person who's excessively concerned with minor details.
And Linnell used the word facetious. Do you know how to spell facetious?
Facetious.
Okay, just making sure.
Did you not, or did you? And you're very proud of it.
I knew how to spell facetious.
Do you know how to spell focaccia? Do you know how to say focaccia? You do now. But yesterday, I brought in some focaccia pizza that my wife Rachel made, and I captured Ant's reaction of how he liked it in a voice note back to Rachel. And this is what that voice note sounded like.
Anthony, what did you think of the pizza?
Fantastic.
He would say more, but his mouth is currently full of it.
First time having this bread. You said it's focaccia. Focaccia. Very tasty though. I taste some garlic. Is there garlic on there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm loving it though.
He's loving it.
Focaccia.
First time having this bread. You said it's focaccia.
I did not say it was Fertacci. You said it was Fertacci. I did not say it was Fertacci.
I don't know, Craig. That's not what I heard the first time, but it's okay. I know what it is now.
Yeah.
Focaccia.
Focaccia.
Yeah.
Focaccia.
Yes.
You had a funny line after. You're like, I almost said Versace. And I was like, no. It is high quality.
Yes.
But not. Also, how sick is technology? That was recorded on my Apple Watch. That was so clear. It's nuts. Anyway, I hope everyone has a great weekend. I really do. See some of y'all tomorrow at Audi Field, Spirit, Gotham at 1 o'clock. And we'll see you Monday right back here. Draft week on the Hoffman Show.